My name is Belay. I'm the General Coordinator of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. I'm also a member of the International Panel of Experts on the Sustainability of Food. I think Africa shares a global problem around food. I'll come to the concept of nutritionism later. But there is, the three main problems related to food, which they call a triple burden of malnutrition. There is hunger, there is a micronutrient deficiency, and there is obesity. Hunger is increasing, hunger is rising. The COVID situation in Africa and also the war between Ukraine and Russia has raised it much more. And a recent report has put it more than 250 million. And the majority of them are from Africa. So it makes it an African problem to some extent. And micronutrient deficiency, more and more, the number of crops that we are producing for food is decreasing. And instead of a diverse number of crops, now we are producing more and more of maize. And in the production of maize has also a problem. You know, when you breed for productivity. You don't breed for nutrition. Any of the crops. That's a major motto of the Green Revolution agenda, is basically you breed for production. You breed for response to artificial fertilizer or to pesticides and herbicides, So that's what you breed for. You don't breed for nutrition. Because of that, we are suffering with micronutrient deficiencies. The story of the stunting and other problems comes in. And their response for that is biofortification. And instead of breeding crops which can give you all the nutrients that you need, and instead of diversifying, now the solution is biofortification. Who biofortifies and who sells biofortified food is another question. The third agenda is obesity. Obesity is increasing. The majority of people are overweight, but obesity is increasing. I think the recent figure that I have, maybe it has improved. There might be a revision of this statistics. But out of 20 countries in the world where obesity is so high, 8 of them are in Africa. So people don't think that Africans are obese. But if you take South Africa, for example, it's an obesity. It's a country which is suffering because of obesity. And it is racial, because the black South Africans are much more obese. And South Africa is a country where genetically modified crops are produced much more. The variety, in terms of diversity of crops, has decreased so much. There's a lot of production of maize. So the Green Revolution agenda, if it is called successful, it's become successful in South Africa. But what do we have? There is still malnutrition. People are still hungry. A micronutrient deficiency is so high in South Africa, and obesity is so high. In addition to that, we have non-communicable diseases, and these diseases are increasing. In all countries, diabetes, cancer, problems related to our respiratory system, heart system, it's all increasing. So much so that countries like Ethiopia has put a solution around NCD in its health policy. So many countries have done that now. So it's a big problem. This all comes from food, from not eating diverse food. So my food is African, starts from the basis that we still have a lot of diversity in African food. I'm an Ethiopian, I know the diversity in Ethiopian food. Maybe it doesn't make sense when you say my food is Ethiopian, whatever, we still eat our food, but increasing number of people with more income are actually eating food from supermarkets. And also the availability and accessibility of food is a big problem in Ethiopia. Um, F is becoming very expensive. I mean, the wheat is expensive. So many food is expensive, so people are eating cheap food.
Yeah.
They are using cheap oil, you know. So because of that, that becomes an agenda to countries like Ethiopia. So this is the food side of it, but in terms of production also, the impact of your production on the environment is also, we have all the problems, biodiversity, decrease, land degradation, pollution, greenhouse gas, release from our agricultural space.
Yeah.
So there, and cultural. The cultural erosion side is what speaks to me so much. You go to Uganda, we Ethiopians have a problem, we think that the only diverse in terms of food is Ethiopia only. But if you go to Uganda, they say that they have recorded more than 150 types of food, diverse food. And a large number of people eat their own food. So you go to North Uganda, South, West, East, Central. It's so diverse. It's rich, in whatever nutrition content that you are speaking about. So, where are we going? Who is our example? You go to you look at the messed up U.S. food system. I was listening this morning about the U.S. food system. Mainly maize, which they call corn, and soya, are dominating 75% of the food that you see in supermarkets. 75% is based on this. Any of the foods, there are these elements. And when you eat meat in the US, you eat corn because they are fed with corn. You see, chicken, corn, and almost all food that you eat is almost corn. If you don't go to supermarkets which sell healthy foods. So this is problematic. But who are we copying? Go to Europe. And now I met European parliamentarians. I meet European scientists. And they tell you that it is messed up also. They are in a problem. So much so that they are producing a new strategy, a new food policy strategy. So it is global, but what is what do you call it? The model for Africa? We don't have model. Yeah? So we can't look at North America and Europe. We have to look inside ourselves. Inside ourselves is also diversity. Then there is another problem that we have seen due to COVID and the war between Ukraine and Russia. There was a time when people who are countries were depending on wheat. They don't have wheat. You see, countries depending on oil. No oil. Fuel is very much critical for countries like Ethiopia because food travels from one part of the country to another through fuel. So if the increase in price of fuel is critical, now fertilizer. I heard yesterday that maybe it has risen to 12,000. 12,000. Can you imagine? So my food is African implies that we can produce our food agroecologically. Agroecology tries to answer this question for me. Can Africa produce more food? Yeah. So can we produce more food through agroecology? Yeah. So production of more food is very important. But in most of the cases, most of the policies in Africa are based on productivity. So it answers productivity. Can we talked about nutrition. Can we produce nutritionally rich food through agroecology? Yes, the food, because agroecology is based on diversity. Is the knowledge of people, the culture of people important? Yes. So when you produce your own food, diverse food, and using the knowledge of farmers and also science, combination of science, then you can produce a diverse food. So it answers the question of resilience, question of adaptation in times of climate change. So AFSA didn't adapt the agroecology or the strategy to work for agroecology out of a blue.
Yeah.
We did our research. We say that does agroecology work for Africa? The word didn't come from Africa. It came from Latin America. That was the origin of the word agroecology and food sovereignty, also some of the concept came from there. So our question is, does agroecology speak for Africa? Or do African farmers produce agroecologically? So we did research. We did collect cases from all over Africa, and we did analysis of those cases, and they yes, agroecology actually works for Africa, because if we build our soil, then we can increase our food production. We have diverse food. Simple example is, for example, in Malawi, two permaculture experts went to Malawi, and they saw most of Malawians eating maize and having all the problems related to micronutrient deficiency. So they had a meeting with a number of older people, and they have asked them, do you have edible crops here? They have identified more than 300 leaves. 300. So they took those leaves and planted them in their permaculture garden, and they could grow them. You see? This is one example. I can give you an example from Tigray, from Ethiopia, the Institute for Sustainable Development. The practice, the experiment was a land which was left fallow without the use of any of agrochemicals or compost, a land with artificial fertilizer, a land with compost and soil and water conservation, and increasing the plant biomass. And the land which was treated with compost has done much better than, in terms of productivity, diversity, all that, much better than that one. So we have a proof for agroecology. The relationship between My Food is African is, as I said, the campaign is for Africans to go back to their own food, produce in their own way, use their culture, and depend on diversity and all that. So that's why it was very, very easy for AFSA to adapt this. And in terms of policy also, we looked at the policies in some 27 African countries, also at the African Union level. So there is no coherence. One policy said this, one policy did that. The policies do not recognize the challenges that we have in terms of the right to food, nutrition, and whatever. And the policies are mainly made from outside, They're made from outside interests, mainly based on productivist agenda. So we say that food policy is needed both country level and at the country level. Invest much more on agroecology, meaning on building their own soil, recognizing and ameliorating and enhancing the knowledge of their own people, Africans. We endorse science. Science is very much important, but don't rely only on science. There's knowledge in our communities. There's knowledge in science. Let them come together and speak. Co-creation of knowledge is very much important. They have to focus on that. So they need to have a policy. The policy, the direction, agricultural policy, it should focus on being self-sufficient and being on food sovereign. That's what my message would be.